Now, the U.S. Senate is to consider a $60 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. And if it goes ahead, it will be one of the largest arms sales in U.S. history. Congress also has a month to raise any objections. The Saudis want new F-15 fighter planes, nearly 200 Apache Black Hawk helicopters, as well as upgrades for its existing aircraft. And the sale would also include a satellite-guided smart bomb system and defense missiles. And for a look into the deal, we're now joined by David Keyes, who's director of cyberdissidents.org. Mr. Keyes, thank you very much for your time. So this is a record-breaking deal, isn't it? But why do the Saudi need all these arms?
Indeed, it is considered the largest arms deal in American history. And the reason that the Saudis want the arms is first and foremost to protect itself from increasing Iranian influence in the Middle East, a Shiite power that's becoming increasingly important in the region. They also want the arms because in classic dictatorial fashion, the Saudi regime does not rely on the consent of its people to be governed, and therefore needs all the arms that it can acquire simply to maintain its presence in the region.
Yeah, and also let's talk a little bit more about human rights. The U.S. has heavily criticized both Iran and China for their human rights record. Why is Washington not doing the same thing when it comes to Saudi Arabia, especially on women's rights?
Well, indeed, there has been, unfortunately, a lack of concern for human rights in Saudi Arabia. There are elements within the U.S. government that believe that the Iranian leadership is moderate and therefore it is an ally of the United States. I believe that the Saudi regime is, in fact, quite extremist in its beliefs and in its policies. Saudi Arabia is a country which lashes gays, prevents women from leaving their home or country without being accompanied by a male mahram or guardian. It is a country which bans the walking of pet cats and dogs in public. There is gender apartheid. It bans women from driving. And I think a lot more can be done to increase American concern and pressure for improvements in Saudi human rights.
Yeah, but does the deal signal any kind of change of attitude to Saudi Arabia by the U.S., or is it a legacy from the Bush administration?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's a continuation of the appeasement of the Saudi dictatorship. It is not America alone which has funded and armed autocratic regimes in the Middle East. Russia as well this year announced $1.8 billion to Libya, and last year $2 billion to Venezuela, and 70% of the Iranian arms imports have also come from Russia. China has unfortunately been very bad on this issue. So it really is a global phenomenon, and it's due in no small part to the influence of Saudi Arabia throughout the West, and a belief in the West that appeasement is the best policy of Saudi dictatorship.
And can you possibly see any reason for the deal not to go through?
Unfortunately not. There are a handful of Democratic and Republican congressmen and senators who oppose the deal. I personally favor linkage in the philosophy of Scoop Jackson and Andrei Sakharov and Nathan Sharansky. If Saudi Arabia wants $60 billion worth of arms and another $30 billion which are being considered, then they should allow women to leave their homes and the country without a male guardian, and they should cease some of their dictatorial policies. I think that's a much saner approach to dealing with Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, I think this deal is going to go through regardless.
All right, David Keyes, director of cyberdissidents.org. Mr. Keyes, thank you very much indeed.